My name is Stepanova Yulia. For many years I ran for the Russian national team. I ran in World and European Championship finals. My specialist event is the 800 meters. My personal best time is 1 minute 56.99. This was achieved with the help of banned substances, EPO, testosterone and steroids. With regard to the steroids in the first instance, my coach gave them to me. I had to give him 25% of whatever I earned. We all knew that everyone was doped. Everyone supported it. Children look up to Olympic champions. But when I was selected for the national team, I saw things that were not quite what they seemed. Many champions are not gods or great talents. They're just liars. That's what disgusted me, the lies. These people are admired, but they're just liars and cheats.
Kohlmann vorne vor Julia Stepanova. Kommt von hinten noch jemand ran? Sonja muss das nicht.
Yulia Stepanova is a whistleblower, a heroine of the fight against doping. Despite the risks, she had the courage to report an organised cheating system in Russian athletics, causing one of the biggest sports scandals and questioning the presence of Russia in international competitions.
Can I ask you a question about doping in the Russian Federation?
Oh, no. It's not only Russia, it's a world problem.
Never in sport at the highest level has cheating been so prevalent. Never has the pharmacological range of performance-enhancing drugs been so great.
Hundreds of undetectable products, the ones athletes take.
Cycling, football, power sports, endurance sports, technical sports, doping is omnipresent. No discipline escapes unscathed. But where do these products come from? How does this underground activity work?
These cheats don't act alone. They have a sophisticated medical team behind them to help them cheat.
The stars of high-performance sports can spend up to €100,000 a year supplying themselves with state-of-the-art treatments still under development. The extreme growth of the sports business has engendered a lucrative black market in doping worth an estimated €30 billion a year. So in whose interest is it to unmask the cheats and clean up sport?
If before seeing a magic show I showed you all the secrets, it would shatter the illusion. It's the same here. People just want to enjoy the show.
Sponsors and sports federations are partly responsible.
Today in football, I think we should have a better control, more frequent, more accurate.
Some of their leaders are happy to squeeze money out of doped athletes and cover the cheats to ensure they take part in international meetings.
Olympic participation is sold to doped athletes.
In a world that values performance and competition so highly, are the proponents of clean sports fighting a losing battle? This is the race to dope. It is rare to find athletes that agree to talk about doping. 22-year-old Quentin Bigot, a hammer thrower, tested positive for an anabolic steroid at the European Championships in Germany in late 2014.
Quentin Bigot a reconnu s'être dopé aux anabolisants.
Le lanceur de marteau mosellan attend toujours sa sanction après avoir été contrôlé.
La commission de discipline de la Fédération française d'athlétisme a reconnu l'athlète lorrain coupable de dopage.
Je pensais que je me ferais jamais prendre.
I thought I'd never be caught. I figured that others would be caught before me and that I'd always be lucky and slip through the net.
His coach, Raphael Piolanti, was indicted for inciting doping.
Here
is where I started the hammer when I was young. Today, it is an outdoor tennis court. But it was here that I met Raphael Piolanti and held a hammer in my hands for the first time. So here is where I learned everything I needed to know about the hammer.
At 18, Quentin Bigot became junior champion of Europe. At 19, he was the youngest athlete of the French delegation at the London Olympics. In a sport where you reach the peak of your performance after 30 years, his career seemed to begin well.
These medals are, let's say, my most cherished ones. They are Grand Championship medals. There are some that I am proud of, like this one. It's my title as Junior Champion of Europe in 2011. It's the only medal I have today that, more or less, I won without doping. I was a junior, so you could say that it was the beginning of my real career, and also the end of my young years, where I was unaware and I didn't take anything. I was clean.
Then in 2012, 6 months before the London Olympic Games, Quentin injured himself. The issue of doping arises for the first time.
I was 3 meters away from qualifying for the Olympics. And it's from then that my coach said to me, "Well, look, now maybe you need a leg up. Really, you don't have a choice. Everyone does it. That's how it is. If you don't, others will. You'll be at home watching TV and that's it." I took gonadotropine. It's a hormone found in the urine of pregnant women. It's natural testosterone. It was injected.
Gonadotropin was originally prescribed by doctors to stimulate the secretion of sex hormones. Athletes use it for its anabolic effects to help increase muscular mass. Quentin Bigot was also taking testosterone propionate injections, methandienone orally, and stanovoldol, the steroid taken by Ben Johnson in 1988. For 2 years, Quentin was able to avoid testing.
Within 2 weeks, it was purged, so I could take it shortly before major events and be in peak condition. Every course of treatment I took, I gained 2 or 3 meters. That's a huge distance.
His former coach denies any involvement. Quentin admits he made a mistake and wants to move on. He hopes to rediscover his best form in 2017.
Even if I never return to an elite level, I need to return for my conscience and to test myself. I'm going to be honest. I want to prove that what I did when I was doping, I will do again now that I'm clean.
Every year worldwide, like Quentin Bigot, 3,000 athletes are suspended by their federations. On a global level, the fight against doping is fairly recent. In 1999, the States created WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency. WADA defined in legal terms what doping is.
In fact, doping is any methods or substances that enhance performance, that damage health or are contrary to the values of sport.
In 2005, 191 states signed UNESCO's International Convention Against Doping in Sport and undertook to harmonise their legislations. But the World Anti-Doping Agency still has no operational role. It's the responsibility of the sports federations to find cheaters, and therein lies the problem. August 2015. Beijing hosts the 15th World Athletics Championships organised by the IAAF. the International Association of Athletics Federations. Since the 2008 Olympic Games, China has become a great organiser nation of sporting events. For 9 days, almost 1,900 athletes from 208 countries are watched by 6 billion television viewers. The IAAF organises the event and sells television rights to broadcasters. Oddly, though, they are also responsible for enforcing anti-doping regulations. It's a strange system, one in which the federations are both judge and jury.
During the Games, in all, we'll carry out over 500 tests, during competition and right after races. It's usually dictated by final positions in the event. We'll pick out the medal winners, then do some random testing too, picking out athletes arbitrarily.
Beyond the finishing line, doping inspectors and members of the International Federation await athletes selected for testing.
All athletes have to pass through that, so we are secure in knowing that the doping procedure cannot miss any of the athletes that have been selected or that are required for doping control. The notification starts after they've passed through the press mix zone, so that's on the other side.
In this secure zone, 500 samples are taken. Every athlete has to supply a urine sample.
And they proceed in then, obviously, to the bathroom. So essentially it looks quite basic, but that's exactly what we need it to be. You can see that we have a mirror here and a mirror here. This is to allow the doping control officer to have full access to see the area from which the sample comes. So the doping control officer will be standing somewhere where they can see the genitalia of the athlete involved. But there were cases where in certain sports athletes were not required to drop their trousers completely, so there was the possibility to hide something within the trousers or the underwear of an athlete.
A trick most famously pulled off by boxer Mike Tyson, who confessed to having deceived testers by using a fake penis filled with clean urine. It is an independent laboratory that analyses the samples. There are 35 in the world that are accredited by the World Anti-Doping Agency. Each athlete must provide 2 bottles, sample A for analysis and sample B for a second test if required. The anonymous samples are separated into several tubes and tested for 400 different chemicals. Every year, the World Anti-Doping Agency publishes the list of substances and prohibited methods. The athletes take great care to avoid the banned substances on it.
We do a lot of testing here. It's a major event. Athletes know they'll be tested. So statistically, we get fewer positives here than we do at lesser events or during out-of-competition testing, which is more targeted. But we have to carry on doing them, otherwise athletes would feel free to take drugs during competition.
Testing during competition is above all about protecting the reputation and credibility of the athletics event in question. These urine tests are supplemented by other checks. Elite athletes are subjected to testing several times a year, either at home or at a hotel. Tests that the federations normally do not allow to be filmed.
Hello, I'm Sue, the doping control officer. She's my colleague. She will help you to collect the blood sample. Yes.
This time it's a blood test.
You may choose one of those packages and make sure it is clean, sealed, and intact. And once you confirm, you may open the package.
Blood testing allows levels of other substances undetectable in urine to be assessed.
Check all numbers on their match.
Yes. Okay, good.
The equipment and protocol are the same for all athletes in all countries. All blood data is kept on record by the IAAF for comparison purposes, to help identify any suspicious variations. This is what is known as a biological passport.
The biological passport is a new tool. It doesn't reveal which substances have been taken, but the effects can be seen. Certain biological markers are monitored. Their levels are usually relatively stable, but might vary when an athlete uses doping methods, such as EPO or blood transfusions. Any variations will be flagged and trigger disciplinary procedures.
In Beijing, 450,000 euros, $500,000 US, was spent on the drive to unmask dopers, but only 2 Kenyan athletes tested positive. Samples can be reanalyzed for a period of up to 10 years.
Since we know that with certain types of doping we are late on the cheaters, we try to create an atmosphere of uncertainty. An athlete who dopes today doesn't know what the science will be in 10 years. We try to hold the sword of Damocles over the athletes to make them think twice.
These retroactive tests can shatter the podiums years after competitions. Since the London Games, Russian Zaripova was stripped of her gold medal in the 3,000-metre steeplechase. The US relay team lost their 4 silver medals, and Turk Alptekin returned her gold medal for the 1,500 metres.
It happens that athletes lose their medals 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, or even 7 years after the Olympic Games. So to be able to claim that an athlete has won a medal, you have to wait for 10 years. For the Rio Olympics, we won't know the list of those who have really won until 2026.
In the entire history of the 100 metres athletics blue ribbon sprint event, only 10 men have run the distance in less than 9.8 seconds. Usain Bolt is the only one to have never been accused of doping. The Jamaican is the first sprinter to have improved the 100 metres world record 3 times. He did so during a period when no blood testing was carried out on Jamaican athletes.
The 2 main issues in Jamaica were a national anti-doping agency of questionable independence. No testing program worthy of the name existed on the island, although elite athletes were training there. It looked like a paradise for doping, with no real restrictions. It gives sport a bad image in that country. These elite athletes are on the athletic circuit and thus subjected to testing by the Athletics Association. But doubts linger. While training in their own country, they go for long periods without being tested, and a lot could happen during that time.
Thus, in 2012, there were no urine tests in Jamaica during the 6-month period that preceded the London Olympics, where Usain Bolt made off with 3 gold medals.
The lack of testing in Jamaica is a concern. All the sprinting records and medals in the last World Championships and Olympics came from Jamaica. The generation of Usain Bolt, Asafa Powell, Shelly-Ann Fraser, a great many athletes set records and won medals.
Bolt's great American rival, Justin Gatlin, has been suspended twice after testing positive for amphetamines and testosterone. He returned at the age of 32 even stronger and faster than he was when he tested positive. His performances duly raised eyebrows. Indeed, scientists suspect that doping may have long-term effects.
Progress in the science of epigenetics shows that the environment has an impact on gene expression. So transformations can be induced that are long-lasting or even permanent. Transformations are linked to the environment, in this case, doping. So it's easy to imagine an athlete using drugs to effect changes that last throughout their career, even if they stop doping.
Considering your nowadays performances, the press uses to remind you your dope use is past.
That's life. My job is to go out here and run fast. Their job is to go out there and give give the news to the world, but have an unbiased opinion about it. So I think they're not doing a good job of being good reporters.
Can we meet later to discuss more about it?
No, I'm done.
Despite 4 years of suspension, Justin Gatlin signed another contract with Nike. The world's largest sports equipment manufacturer is sending out mixed messages.
A very cynical attitude is shown by sponsors like Nike. They pay for records to be broken. Then, when athletes test positive, instead of cancelling their contracts, they carry on paying them. It's as if the executives at Nike always knew what Marion Jones, Justin Gatlin and Marta Dominguez were up to. Nike sponsored them even after they tested positive. It gives you some idea of Nike's take on the doping problem.
The war on doping is only justified by the fact that it sells the image of a clean sport. Otherwise, the credibility or sporting achievements could be questioned. So it's business, flaunting a war on doping where we know it's almost pointless if athletes are seldom caught. The internal rationale of sport won't change. Doping is inextricably linked to the rationale of competition.
This cheating, inherent in competitive sport, eventually convinced someone to blow the whistle. Yulia Stepanova, Russia's 800 metres champion in 2011, along with her husband Vitaly, unveiled to the world how Russia creates its champions. For 5 years, Yulia rubbed shoulders with the world's best athletes. Vitaly is an advisor to the director of the Russian anti-doping agency. This is him at the side of the sports minister in 2009. In 2014, the couple decided to reveal the systematic doping of Russian athletes. Doping organised by the country's medical and sporting bodies and covered up by the state. Their revelations caused a scandal. Forced to react, the IAAF suspended 4,000 Russian athletes. It's the biggest collective punishment in the history of sport.
Le couple lanceur d'alerte dresse un portrait sévère de l'athlétisme russe, présenté comme gangréné par le dopage et la corruption. L'Agence mondiale antidopage s'est dit terriblement choquée par ces allégations et nomme une commission d'enquête.
Vladimir Putin is forced to reassure the world. 2 months later, 2 directors of the anti-doping agency died under suspicious circumstances. Vyacheslav Sinev and Nikita Kamaev dead just as they were preparing to make public disclosures, according to the Sunday Times. Considered traitors in their homeland, the whistleblower couple exiled themselves to Berlin.
We are afraid for our lives, afraid that someone might try and kill us. We don't know how far this story will go.
The story began the day that Yulia met Sergei Portugalov, the head of the Athletics Federation's medical department, who prescribed her a doping program.
Sergei Nikolaevich Portugalov is, how can I put it, a doctor who prepares athletic teams for the European and World Championships to make sure they win medals. When we met, he liked to boast that he was a good specialist who produced excellent results and that he had prepared many champions. If anyone tested positive, it was because they hadn't listened to him. He said he worked with Masha Savinova and Yulia Zaripova.
two of the gold medal winners of the London Olympic Games. If few athletes tested positive, it's because the anti-doping agents in Moscow were themselves corrupt.
During the Russian Championships, I ran 3 times and tested positive. The first time it happened was in 2011. At a premises in Moscow, while preparing with Portugalov, he told me not to panic if I was tested. He said to do the test as usual. I'd be given a pink slip with the test number. I was to send him the number by text message and not lose any sleep over it. That's what I did on each occasion. I sent him the number. I don't know what happened, but I wasn't disqualified.
While competing, Yulia met Vitaly, her future husband. On their second date, she broached the issue of doping.
I didn't say it openly, but I let it be known.
You did say it openly?
Really?
Yes.
I thought he already knew. Everybody knew what was going on.
After hearing about this, I went to see the head of WADA in his office. I said that I'd seen Yulia, and she told me things. He just looked at me and didn't say anything.
The man who said nothing was Vyacheslav Sinev, one of the 2 directors that died under suspicious circumstances. But what were the Russian athletes doing to escape checks abroad?
When a team is heading off to compete, all the athletes have blood tests a few days before departure. We give blood samples for dope tests, and a Russian lab checks them. If all is well, the athletes are allowed to compete.
You know, the detection methods are always changing, and the dates, how long some substances can be detected, are always getting shorter. But again, usually the directors of the labs are the first ones to receive this information. So they in a country like Russia, they have to share this information, because the main goal is not to catch dopers. The main goal is to help people win gold medals.
The Russian anti-doping agency dispute the accusations.
Vitaly, he has refused to cooperate with us on this matter. And for us, it's a pity. If you want to fight against doping in sport, you should not only give these bold statements publicly. It's not enough just to, appear in the screen and say everyone is corrupted. Facts and presumptions, that's what we need to have in order to establish an anti-doping rule violation.
Further to Vitaly and Yulia's revelations, WADA has made Russia the subject of an investigation. Meanwhile, Yulia hopes to rediscover her best form.
My most recent time was 2 minutes 2:68. Given the lack of preparation, that was a good time. I'm not taking anything now, but I'm achieving good performances. I realize that it's me who is running, not the steroids. I'm responsible for these times, not them. On the right line here, the wind is very strong.
Don't worry, don't look at your watch, try and run lightly. For the last lap, don't look at your watch, run for pleasure.
To take part in international competition, she first needs to find a host country to accept her into their team.
So far, no country has made me an offer, which is understandable because so far my performances are not good enough to make anyone want to have me. But I'm not too upset. I just want to run.
But what country would dare defy Putin and adopt Yulia? Russia, however, does not have the monopoly on doping. Every year worldwide, 3,000 athletes test positive for doping. Among the sports in which cheating has been found to be the most prevalent in recent years are bodybuilding, athletics, baseball, American football, weightlifting, boxing, wrestling, cycling, ice hockey, rugby, swimming, and basketball. Power and endurance sports are not the only concerns.
In many sports, the technical aspects are highlighted to show that doping is an irrelevance. We hear it in football, tennis, and swimming. It's true that no drug can make a poor tennis player into a good one. But between two excellent tennis players, the one who is less tired is more likely to win a tense final set. So doping can make a difference, even in technical sports.
As a sport that relies on technique, football would seem to be above doping scandals, and yet it has been tainted by match rigging and corruption.
Sorry to wake you up.
No problem.
No problem.
During the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, 736 players were tested, like in this FIFA promotional video. Once again, the tests are financed and carried out by the federation that organises the event.
Do you think that there is a doping like in other sports, or what is your opinion?
It's more difficult in football. You know, just need to run. You know, just need to have power. You need to use your brain. You need to have talents.
And you need also a little luck to score the goal.
Of course, of course.
No footballer tested positive in Rio, a source of satisfaction to FIFA.
The last positive case we had was during the 1994 World Cup in United States, Maradona. There is a very clear commitment to make the FIFA competitions doping-free.
Despite this show of toughness, do the rulers of world football really provide the necessary means to catch cheats? In 1998, FIFA had all the samples destroyed after the World Cup, thus avoiding any subsequent unmasking of drug cheats. In 2006, no blood samples were taken. In 2014, the laboratory that tested the samples was in Lausanne, over 12 hours away from Rio. After 12 hours, tiny doses of EPO are no longer detectable in urine samples. So, is the myth of clean football to be believed? Retired player Rai, a world champion in 1994, is sceptical.
We feel there haven't been any developments in the hunt for banned substances or improved testing. We see that many other sports now have testing during training, surprise testing, but not in soccer. Nowadays, the intensity and speed of the game have increased. The greater number of impacts means that you need more muscle mass. Physical preparations have evolved a lot in this respect. Obviously, questions have been asked. But the investigations carried out are not commensurate with the issues raised. This doesn't help establish whether or not soccer really does have fewer doping cases or whether it's just a lack of testing. Today, certainly, I think we need better, more frequent and more accurate testing.
We are football fans. We don't think about doping. We want to drink beer and have fun. Doping isn't a problem in football. In the Tour de France, maybe. For football fans, it isn't an issue. A few years ago, we talked to Stefan Machina, an Austrian implicated in blood doping who supplied footballers in many countries with the same products that cyclists take. He had a contract with one player who was preparing for Champions League qualification using EPO, growth hormones, steroids, the usual doping products.
Doping in football has only been revealed much later. We know that the German team were taking amphetamines during the 1986 World Cup. Juventus are known to have given their players blood transfusions. And at Olympique Marseille, injections before matches were commonplace. Doping carried out under the supervision of the clubs.
It recently emerged that many athletes sought out senior physician Dr. Armin Klümper, who supplied anabolic steroids to VfB Stuttgart and SC Freiburg. Megagrisovit, a powerful anabolic steroid, is just one of the drugs used by footballers. This was common knowledge within the club. There weren't just a few isolated cases. This was institutionalized doping within the club. As a player, Joachim Löw was on the books of both Freiburg and Stuttgart during this period.
Joachim Löw now leads the German team and denies ever having doped. The French coaches Didier Deschamps and Zinedine Zidane also played for a club mentioned in a medical manipulation case.
Doping has been used and is used in football. Football has a huge advantage in that it has the economic strength to seek out alternatives to banned substances.
Demasiado ese pie, el jugador del Bayern, se lo lleva al Barça por mediación de Neymar, sigue el paulista, vamos Neymar, va a dejar ese balón para Leo Messi, aparece el argentino, mete entre líneas, ojo dentro del área, no hay fuera de juego, va a dejar ese balón para el remate, ¡gol!
These alternative methods are cell therapies intended to allow tendon and ligament injuries to heal more quickly. The treatments were forbidden by WADA in 2005 as they can artificially enhance performance. And yet in Barcelona, Dr. Ramon Cugat practices these therapies on the world's top football players.
Nosotros utilizamos el tratamiento de células.
We employ a treatment that uses stem cells and growth factors. These are very specific cytokine proteins that are present in blood platelets and plasma. We increase the number of platelets in the blood by a factor of between 2.5 and 3 using a centrifugation process. Then we activate them and they are ready to be used.
This platelet-rich plasma is re-injected into the wound to speed up healing. Has this cellular therapy been used on the players at Barcelona?
Yes, but not only Barcelona players, hundreds of them. We have treated all the top players in Europe, Latin America, in Brazil, Russia, Ukraine, Italy, France, Germany, England.
So, football has used a banned method and then manages to get it validated by the World Anti-Doping Agency. The world's most popular sport has rewritten the rules on doping.
As there was this ban, we prepared a doctoral thesis to see what happened when we injected dogs and how it affected their muscles. The thesis concluded that injecting growth factors causes no muscular hypertrophy. When Real Madrid expresses a position worth 500 million euros, then WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, from a scientific medical standpoint, has to sit up and take notice. But the same thing applies to many other cases. The war against doping is an economic battle. The power now resides with those who finance the top-class sport.
There are sports where there is a lot of doping, like Formula 1, football, golf, tennis, etc., which are completely sheltered for reasons unknown. So if I take tennis or golf as an example, it's interesting to know that the unions that manage the international circuit are those that oversee anti-doping tests. So it is rather odd. It's as if you composed a jury of the criminals' family members. It's sort of the same thing. There are anomalies that apparently do not upset the sports system, but that should be noted.
In tennis, many players have spoken out at one time or another to ask that the severity of ruling bodies on the war on doping should be taken up a notch. So that's really saying that the situation is lax. And oddly, they were called out by the Association of Tennis Professionals to be careful and warned them not to sully the reputation of those that gave them life. In other words, not to bite the hand that feeds them. So there is a very, very strong reluctance in this sport to talking about doping.
Among the most ambiguous disciplines when it comes to doping is bodybuilding. An amateur and allegedly aesthetic sport which consists of developing muscle mass. Many use doping products bought on the black market. The police and customs officers regularly seize banned products from the homes of sellers. It's a flourishing black market, estimated to be worth over 30 billion euros a year worldwide. Less risky than prostitution and narcotics, this illegal trade is in the hands of large criminal organizations.
The Russia gang is well known. It's a coalition of mafias, the Russian crime organization. They've taken over from the Italian-American mafia and control most of the markets in Central and Eastern Europe, supplying the USA and Western Europe.
So where are these doping products manufactured? The Republic of Moldova, near the Ukraine. Right in the middle of the capital is Balkan Pharmaceuticals. A laboratory employing a staff of 80. Interpol accuses it of illegally selling doping products all over the world.
The company produces medication for the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, analgesics. Mostly we produce cardiotrophic treatments, medication for the gastrointestinal system, and anti-tumor drugs.
The manufacture of such products is perfectly legal in Moldova. Sportsmen, though, use many of them for purposes other than those intended. Clomid, or clomiphene, a drug usually prescribed to sterile women, is used by bodybuilders after testosterone treatment. Likewise, cytomel, or liothyronine sodium, a thyroid hormone used to supplement steroids. And piracetam, a psychostimulant that works on the central nervous system, is used by athletes to improve their ability to concentrate.
All Balkan pharmaceutical products are free of patents, meaning we only manufacture generic products.
Medications that have fallen into the public domain and that major pharmaceutical laboratories in many cases have stopped manufacturing. Some of them have been banned from being sold in Europe, such as clenbuterol, a drug intended for racehorses.
What is this? It is anti-asthmatic bronchodilator drugs.
In reality, it's mostly used by athletes to melt away excess fat.
Are they sold in Europe? No.
Balkan pharmaceuticals products are not licensed for sale in the EU.
Not licensed, and yet their products are sold on various specialist websites in a range of languages. These illegal sales financed the construction of this new laboratory, the official cost of which was 26 million euros, an amount superior to WADA's annual budget. Also available by internet are state-of-the-art, undetectable doping products. Products that are unavailable on the market and very dangerous. Products such as growth hormone, DNP or dinitrophenol, extremely toxic. It was identified by Interpol, who raised the alarm after several people using it died of hypothermia. The orders are delivered by mail, often escaping customs checks. Growth hormones and TB500, a miracle molecule used by cyclists. Once paid for into an account in Thailand, they're dispatched from China via Hong Kong. These thyroid hormones were paid for by bank transfer to an account in Slovakia and dispatched from Poland. Even dinitrophenol, used for rapid weight loss and fatal at only 4 times the recommended dose. Ordered from a website based in Panama, it was dispatched from the UK. Even more amazing is this molecule sent from China, known as FG4592. Pharmaceutical laboratories are still testing its effectiveness against certain forms of anemia. Sold at around 400 euros a gram, a 1-month course of treatment for elite athletes would cost almost 3,000 euros. These products are evidence of trafficking on a global scale, a worldwide operation with its own network of laboratories, online merchants and sellers spread all over the planet. A globalized market which supplies the demands of athletes and their entourage.
Pricing-wise, we estimate 3 levels of doping. For €6, a national-level athlete can obtain basic products: creatine, amino acids, insulin, ozone. €30,000 buys you doping at a Mario Cipollini or Dwayne Chambers level. More sophisticated hormones combined with masking products, plus a training plan and medical support. For €100,000, you get the best: Marion Jones or Lance Armstrong, the most sophisticated substances, along with hard-to-obtain masking products and treatments to limit side effects. A cynical view is that Armstrong made a rational calculation. Doping elevated him from an anonymous $300,000 a year racer to earning $23 million.
Lance Armstrong ha reconocido que gracias al dopaje pudo ganar 7 Tours de Francia.
EPO, Transfusion, Testosteron, Cortison, Hormone. Lance Armstrong vide son sac.
Selbst hatte bisher stets bestritten, verbotene leistungssteigernde Mittel genommen zu haben.
These cheats don't act alone. You have to be realistic. They often have a sophisticated medical team behind them to help them cheat. The people who know how to use these products, adapt them from their usual therapeutic use, are specialist physicians who have this knowledge.
Among the implicated medical accomplices is Michel Ferrari, Lance Armstrong's doper physician, who helped him secretly for $1 million. Given a life ban by the Italian Cycling Federation in 2002, he continues to work discreetly with athletes. Like Alex Schwazer, the 2008 50 kilometres walk Olympic champion who tested positive for EPO 4 years later.
The angel-faced walker, fiancé of Karolina Kozna and gold medalist in 2008 in Beijing, is excluded from the Olympic team. "I made a mistake. My career is over," says the Olympic champion who captured our imagination in Beijing.
I won at the Olympics when I was 23, and I sometimes felt I'd reached the end. I didn't know who to turn to. Then, thanks to my sponsor, a cycling fanatic, Pietro Ferrero, I was put in touch with Dr. Ferrari. I was perfectly aware that this was unofficial collaboration. I could never have mentioned him as my trainer. He was rather taboo, someone to be avoided. I paid 20,000 euros in cash, in installments. He even asked me during our first meeting who was paying, whether or not it was my sponsor. I told him I was paying. But it was a lot of money. I'm not a footballer or a top cyclist. I don't earn that kind of money. But I agreed, because that year I could become European champion. The fee would pay for itself.
Alex Schwazer denounces the impunity of those who cover up doping, the coaches, officials, an entourage that is rarely punished. Interviewed by the prosecutor, Schwazer declared that his national federation knew full well that he was using performance-enhancing drugs and allowed him to do so.
Those who tolerate doping, which they do, and those who help perpetrate it, those who fail to intervene, they should pay, just as I've had to pay. And I'll pay till the very last day. No clemency for me. They must pay too. Not as high a price as me. I doped myself, so what I did was worse. But they have to take some responsibility.
4 years after his suspension, the walker has returned to competition. To put a stop to suspicions, he now trains with Sandro Donati, one of doping's most celebrated opponents, the polar opposite of Dr. Ferrari.
He publicly requested that I act as his guarantor for a credible return to competition. When we met, he asked me to set up a testing system that would guarantee for me, for him and for the public, who have to believe in the results. I had already thought of asking the haematology unit of a major public hospital, the San Giovanni Hospital, which I did.
Alex is now subjected to the world's strictest anti-doping checks.
Hello.
Hello, Alex. How are you?
Good, thanks.
He's been tested 40 times in 1 year, compared to an average of 2 to 5 times for other athletes. Many more of his blood parameters are scrutinised than is usual for the regular biological passport.
I think that if an athlete returns after being disqualified for doping, and if he wants his results to carry any weight, free of any lingering suspicion, then he has to do more. That way, you provide a guarantee, if only to your opponents.
Many athletes are now demanding third-party drug testing independent of athletics associations. In the face of repeated drug scandals, the World Anti-Doping Agency tried to call to order the federations and signatory states of the International Convention Against Doping. After 1 year of investigation in Russia, WADA delivers its conclusions.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, welcome to Geneva for this special WADA Independent Commission press conference.
We have found cover-ups, we found destruction of samples in the laboratories, we found payments of money in order to conceal doping tests, among others. So it's worse than we thought. All of this could not have happened and continue to happen without the knowledge of and either actual or implied consent of the state authorities. So, I mean, their lab is gone, their national anti-doping organization is gone. We've recommended that the Russian Athletics Federation be suspended. They're gone.
Thank you very much.
Russia's presence in international competitions is suspended until they can conform to the world anti-doping codes.
Новости в продолжении скандала, который разгорелся вокруг российских легкоатлетов. Спортсменка-бегунья Юлия Степанова и ее муж, бывший сотрудник российского антидопингового агентства, попросили политического убежища в Канаде. Об этом сообщил член Комитета Госдумы по физической культуре и спорту Игорь Ананских. По его мнению, данная информация еще раз доказывает, что история, начавшаяся с откровений супружеской пары об использовании российскими спортсменами запрещенных препаратов, не что иное, как спланированная акция. И свидетельствует о субъективном подходе Всемирного антидопингового агентства WADA.
Russia's sanction is a bittersweet victory for whistleblower Yulia Stepanova. Suspended from all competition, along with 4,000 Russian athletes.
I tried to help, and in return, I was disqualified. No one will want to help fight doping if they're going to get disqualified.
Having taken refuge in the USA, thousands of miles from Moscow, whistleblowers Yulia and Vitaly feel they've been abandoned by the world's sporting institutions.
In return for doing all of that, she got sanctioned. And neither IOC, WADA, or IAAF is ready to address this issue as of now, because I guess they have bigger issues to deal with. They have to reinstate Russia, and they can't worry about a small athlete from Russia.
It's kind of political.
I call it bullshit. I don't call it politics.